I do feel like there's some people that's trying to George Zimmerman me. Every time God is about to put me through like some life-changing, he throw a little test my way.
Joe Budden says his life is in danger. On the last episode of the Joe Budden podcast, it was really odd. One of the oddest episodes I've ever seen of the show, and that's saying a lot for a show that has always embraced controversy unrelentingly. And one of the most interesting comments I heard was, there's people trying to Zimmerman me. And Zimmerman was the person who killed Trayvon Martin many years ago. It was very racially motivated. And I thought that phrasing was very insightful, to say the least. And I can only imagine what he might mean. Many are speculating that it might be connected to his studio complex, where there is a lot of folks who do not appreciate the type of content he is making in the apartment complex. And then there's even other instances on this episode where Flip alludes to Joe Budden going through something and him not being able to catch a break.
Bro, so
Can't catch a break, though, Joe.
It's okay.
Can't catch a break.
Now, there is the other caveat of many speculating that it is health related, which is having Joe speak in this somber tone. And the only other times he's done this to me was when he spoke on the Tea Leaves episode where he talked about Rory and Mal exiting the podcast.
I'm hearing rumblings. People might be tired, burnt out, don't get the vision, don't understand. I don't know. But whatever it is, sit down for a little bit, get yourself together, reconvene, see if this is what you want to do.
And he was very reflective. There was also another episode where he was seemingly alluding to the Sin situation and kind of how he was going through legal proceedings. So that tone is very much reserved for the highest levels of tension in his life. And on the last video I did about this very same subject, I speculated that it might have been related to whatever was happening with a significant other. I might be wrong. I might be totally wrong. But I still think it's something about his significant other. I'm not saying it's all of it. It could be a mix of a bunch of things happening. But in my comment section, there were folks noticing that Joe seemed skinnier, or Joe seemed bewildered, and the rest of the cast was kind of reacting to it. But I think the comment about there's people trying to Zimmerman me, that's wild. That's wild, because I think any man of color has been in that situation where they could have died. And the line is very thin. You walk that every day. I myself have been thrown against a wall when I was walking down the street by cops. I'm talking about like a task force who literally thought I was threatening. And I mean, you guys see me. Everybody says I look soft. I'm a beta male and all that stuff. So I can only imagine Joe, who just told the story about how he was sleepwalking butt naked, and a naked man of his stature, his complexion, could very well get in a situation where he might not make it home. And the cast, they were trying to deal with Joe on a, like, you kind of can see how each member of the show was dealing with Joe. First, there's Melissa Ford, always oblivious, doesn't know what's going on. Then there's Flip. I know what's going on, but I'm not going to say it. You be saying I use you for content, but I would never do that. And then you have Parks. Parks was trying to keep the ball moving. He didn't want to focus on what was happening. He didn't want nobody to talk about it. He's like, oh, man, oh, okay. So Parks is very much intimately aware of what happened. He knows. Parks knows, if don't nobody else. Then, on the last behind-the-scenes episode of the Joe Budden podcast, which was from this taping of the show, there was no type of footage of Joe. Joe was there, but Joe wasn't actively participating in the episode. It was mostly about Ian talking to other members of the cast. And in all the other behind the scenes that I've seen where Joe was present, Joe was very much a participator in the dialogue. So for Joe to come back after weeks of being out the loop and to be in the behind the scenes and there's no type of dialogue with him, very telling. Very telling. Very interesting. And I have to double back and make another video about this because there's just a lot of weird parts to this story. They're back in the old studio, and if you look at the cameras, the footage, it looks way better because they have new cameras since Rory and Mal were there. And also, a lot of folks in my comments are saying, Daddy, that's not the old studio. Of course it's not the old studio, but it's the old studio after they left the old studio. And the footage was different. That means they likely had to shuffle cameras back and forth. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. This is a situation we are witnessing unfolding, and we'll see where this goes. But let me know what you think. I had to circle back to it because that Zimmerman comment was very shocking to me. We all know what happened with Zimmerman and Trayvon. Zimmerman was part of the neighborhood watch, looking for a reason to harm someone. And Trayvon unfortunately lost his life. So for Joe to make that analogy, very telling. Very telling. It speaks to where he stands. And you also have to imagine that the people in his apartment complex, where property or condos probably go from 2 to 5 million, maybe upwards of 7 million. They don't want to hear Joe and his people on that balcony arguing all day. They don't want to hear the music. They don't want to hear the improper improv. So they might be pressing up on him. And imagine the stressors of being Joe. Like the studio you're proud of, that you enjoy filming in, that you put probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in, and it might not be your home for much longer. Now, looking ahead, the next episode will tell us a lot. Will Joe be recording at his old new studio, the one in Jersey with the waterfront in the back? I'm going to say I don't think so. Because you got to move that equipment over. And I remember when Parks, he did a live from his house or apartment or wherever. And those weren't the cameras that he was using for the show. So that means that the cameras that were there weren't there until recently. So I think they're going back to Parks' house. And that unlocks another load of questions. What's happening to the old studio? What's happening to the New Jersey studio? With the backdrop, it looks like the male version of The View. And we'll see. I'll be monitoring. I'll probably do a video right after that joint drops. So stay tuned here. We got a lot more coming. And I got a video coming out about Melissa Ford shooting at me on the last episode of this episode. Funnily enough, this episode, a lot was going on, y'all. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.